In order to become God, man must regress to the primal original state of consciousness. This is the ultimate rationale behind the attempts by occultists of all ages to leap backward and inward to the interior depths of the tree, thereby reverting to the pre-evolved state of consciousness before Keter transmitted the current of manifestation from the eye of the void. This quote forms part of a larger working map of how consciousness can be pushed backward through our sexuality, through certain rituals, rites, magical correspondences, and symbolism. And this comes from the Nightside of Eden, an extremely powerful book that was written in the 1970s by the brilliant mind of practical occultist Kenneth Grant. So, welcome to part 3 of my Nightside series. If you are new here, then check out my playlist called Nightside. It is linked in the description below and also in my pinned comment. So prepare yourself for a deep dive into this text that focuses on using the Kabbalistic tree of death, not the Kabbalistic tree of life. Grant called this tree the night side. Through certain sexual rites, through symbolism, through correspondences, in order to access this mystery universe that Grant called Universe B. We are currently here on Earth in this physical reality, which is Universe A. It's our material universe of structure and of order. And the idea of this text is that we don't have to stay here. We can do certain things which are in Grant's system, which is in Grant's system mostly sexual of nature, in order to converse with this mystery universe. So I had huge visual plans for this video, but unfortunately I had a run-in with my horse, and because of this, I can barely use this hand. Hence, the main special effect today is mostly going to be me. So let's get ready and begin. In most magical systems, especially in the Kabbalah, there is this hyper focus on denying the body, denying pleasure, and striving towards this vision of purity in order to ascend or to reach the Godhead or become one with the Godhead. But this is not the case in Grant's system at all. Kenneth Grant used a different system entirely. Now, you need to remember that this man was influenced by a lot of people, by free thinkers, people who did not like to be confided or boxed in with their manner of thinking. He was an initiate of Aleister Crowley. He literally studied under him and was initiated by him. So he had access to Aleister Crowley's entire magical library. He was also influenced by his own wife, who introduced him to many occultists, and many people believe that his wife influenced and introduced him to the tantric systems. He was also influenced by Austin Osman-Spare, who wrote a lot of very interesting things and was an absolute genius with artwork and depictions. He's also the father of chaos magic. And chaos magic is a broad topic, but in a summarized version, chaos magic rests on the principle of belief. So if you firmly believe something and pour your entire heart, mind, will, everything into that something, so as to make it an unshakable belief, This principle holds that that belief can come true, that you can create and devise your own sigils in order to manifest this desire. So Kenneth Grant was influenced by this man as well. He was also insanely fascinated by the works of H.P. Lovecraft and what was written in the Necronomicon. Now, I know many people believe that that was only fiction, but it is very worthwhile to note here that a lot of people in our Western society today are adopting these beliefs. So we can almost say that the old ones mentioned in the Necronomicon and by Lovecraft are becoming this new pagan religion of our Western world. I also want to state here that Lovecraft wrote what he wrote after getting very horrific nightmares, and one should never dismiss what happens in the dream world. Also, as a practical occultist myself, I've tried out some of what he wrote down, and I firsthand experienced some of these beings that he refers to as the old ones. So, based on my experience at least, I don't believe for 1 millisecond that this was mere fiction, like at all. I'm sorry, don't believe it. Now, Grant's system focuses on using sexuality and then the associated rights with this in order to regress. So, to regress your consciousness to a state before your actual identity formed. So, in his system of using the tree of death instead of the tree of life, you should not move upward as with the traditional tree of life, which is centered towards ascension, but you should rather move downward, and then you should also move inward with this tree because you want to reach the point of true origin, literally the point where everything began. And this point, universe B, is what birthed our universe A into existence. This system is also deeply rooted on the feminine and in the power of the feminine and everything that's related to that. When we move downward and inward with this tree, then all of our rigid structures of our identity dissolves. And sometimes this can only be attained through the practice of a wide variety of practices that's rooted in different sexual rights. Because these practices themselves are identity dissolving. So it dissolves the ego, it dissolves the identity, and it simply dissolves these rigid structures that keep you stuck and it opens you up. So the further we move downward and inward with this tree, the more we return to this great mother, who is also the cosmic womb. That's also this mystery place, universe B, that we aim to get to. When we only move upward with the tree and follow the traditional Kabbalistic tree of life, then we move upward towards more order and more structure. So this really is the masculine principle. It is the world that we live in today. According to me, nothing special. But when we move downwards and inwards, we move into chaos. So we are moving from perfect order, which is an illusion. One could say projected by the guy in mind, I guess, if I'm really running wild and deep with this. And we are reaching the center. We are reaching the great mother. We are reaching the point of where we all sprouted from, the point that birthed all of us. And chaos does not mean chaos without order. It simply means there's a lack of structure as we know and perceive it in the day and life that we live in today. These two, subject and object, unite, and the union causes change, which is the formula of magic. Union occurs in consciousness, where the act is reflected as in a mirror, and the act opens the gate through which the will is projected. This image occurs in the mirror world at the back of the tree, for in that dimension time flows backwards and man reverts to ape. There's so much symbology in this paragraph alone. This is a quote from Nightside of Eden. Firstly, this refers to the necessity of sexual union in many of these practices. It refers to the fact that we need to be conscious during that union of what we are doing, what we aim to achieve. And then we need to project this through the will in order to create the image of what we want or the manifested state of what we want at the back of the tree so that it can flow from the back of the tree into our dimension. There's a lot of different symbology also attached to this paragraph, but for the purposes of this video, this simply just says it all. It says it all, guys. So, if our consciousness can actually move backward and inward and accelerate and so on and so forth, then this regression itself must actually exist in the cosmos itself because, according to the Hermetic axiom of as above, so below, as within and so without, everything that happens on earth and in our bodies, everything is mimicked in the greater cosmos, in the greater beyond. So the night side or the tree of death is not merely a structure inside of your psyche. It actually mirrors bigger things as well. It mirrors the cosmic processes and it even mirrors your actual anatomy. So the night side is literally the backside of the tree. What is on your backside? Your anus. From this alone, we can certainly devise certain rites that go with accessing this nightside tree and trying to reach this universe B. But this goes much broader than just our anatomy itself. This is actually literally written into the structure of the sky, specifically into the northern sky and the polar system. The same regression that occurs in consciousness is mirrored above, literally in the fixed geometry of the northern stars, the northern sky. And there is actually a bridge to the other side, which is universe B, that can be accessed via the relationship between the polar system, the pole star, and the world axis. Now, as mentioned in my previous video in this series, you access the night side, universe B, through the central Sephirot, which is called Da'at. This is sometimes present and it's also sometimes not present. So the art is this gateway that we need in order to communicate with this other place, which is universe B. And ironically, it's also related to the Garden of Eden and literally to the north. So this is why Grant placed such a high emphasis on the northern sky in a lot of his writings, specifically in Nightside of Eden. He placed an emphasis on the north as being the point of our origin, as being literally the origin of our world, and also being related to the feminine. Now, it's worthwhile to note here again, as I've noted in my previous video, that today we live in a mostly masculine dominated society. We've mostly forgotten about the feminine. Now, in the past, in ancient times, long, long ago, this was not the case at all. So Grant called this great mother, who is space, who is this universe be, who birthed order, which is our physical world, out of chaos, Typhon. And this is very similar to a lot of different mythologies, especially the Gnostic mythology of the fall of Sophia and the Demiurge, and also the writings of Aleister Crowley on Babylon and even on the goddess Nuit, which I just want to state here, Nuit kind of sounds like knew it. And, well, her son was, according to Egyptian mythology, Hadit, which kind of sounds like had it. So, did we know it? All those years ago in ancient times when the feminine principle was worshipped and we lost it? Before we actually followed astrology, which is masculine orientated, because it's focused around the movement of the planets around the sun. So this is the solar system. We followed a different system entirely, which was focused on the feminine, which was focused on the northern sky. According to the stellar mythos, the pole star within the northern sky is associated with Typhon, this great primordial mother that birthed order, our material universe, out of chaos. And it gets a bit trickier because, in a sense, Typhon is also chaos. But basically, this says that the mother came first. Now, the pole star within the northern sky, called Polaris, has a fixed position within this northern sky, and Ursa Major, comprised of seven stars, moves around this pole star, Polaris. What's really interesting here is if we look at gematria, then Typhon is actually assigned the number 5. So this relates to the feminine principle. The feminine principle, we can say, is assigned the number 5. And the number 5 is also related to the Egyptian underworld, actually. And the Egyptian underworld directly corresponds to universe B because it is the spirit realm, right? So this is really interesting because if we just look at the number 5 and our own physical anatomy, we have 5 toes on each foot. In total, they make up the number 10. We have 5 fingers on each hand. In total, they make up the number 10. So 5 is the number between spaces. It's literally this midpoint between 0 and 10. Now, the average menstrual cycle for a woman is also 5 days, and this is very crucial because menstrual blood forms part of a lot of the power in many of these rituals. So, this is never to be taken lightly. Nightside of Eden literally says 5 is the feminine principle in her lunar form. And then it also mentions that Nuet is in the middle and the circle is red. This number also encodes and corresponds to the old ones, as mentioned by Lovecraft and in the Necronomicon. And yet again, for those of you who only think that this is fiction, based on personal experience, it really isn't. It's very complicated, it's very weird, it's very strange, We probably can't put a label on it, but the old ones mentioned by Lovecraft, in my opinion, definitely is not a fictional storytelling of some characters that we can barely comprehend. Ursa Major contains seven visible stars, so seven stars that we can actually see, and these circle around Polaris, which is the pole star, and the circulation of these seven stars in Ursa Major around Polaris was used in ancient times as a literal sky clock, and it marked time and direction. So, in other words, Polaris is the unmoving point. Ursa Major is the sevenfold movement that's around this unmoving point or axis. The number seven literally relates to Set, and Set is masculine. Set is the child of the Great Mother, and the pole itself corresponds to Typhon, yet again the Great Mother, and then also to the cosmic womb. Interesting enough, the movement of Ursa Major creates a spiral. This spiral is visible to us and it looks like a path. And this spiral of Ursa Major literally is the northern gateway. And this also corresponds to the idea of Jacob's ladder. So there's so many correspondences in this text. I can make so many videos about the night side of Eden because the correspondences are just endless. And reading this text honestly is very difficult because it's almost as if Kenneth Grant just dumped the contents of his mind into this book. And he's constantly referencing and mentioning things from other writers, from other books, from his own writings. So, to understand this, to unpack this, and to create a full directory, so to speak, of all the correspondences are almost impossible. But I'm not giving up. So, let's continue. So we can say that the pole star is the axis and Ursa Major is the ladder, and the number seven, the stars of Ursa Major, corresponds to Set, which is the masculine principle, and this is also motion, so it signifies motion. Now, the rotation of these stars causes an opening in the doorway towards Universe B, and this doorway needs to be accessed or can only be accessed at the opportune time through certain rites, often sexual in nature, mostly sexual in nature, that literally activate this opening. Now, these rites are mostly sexual in nature because they are an internal mirror of this external phenomenon. Yet again, remember the hermetic axiom of as above, so below, and as within our bodies, so without our bodies, outside of our bodies. I cannot help but to think back to the numerous writings here in H.P. Lovecraft and in the Necronomicon, where it's literally written over and over again. When the stars are aligned, then, only then, will the old ones return. So, this literally refers to the northern sky, to the importance of alignment, the as above, so below principle, in order to activate this doorway, in order to bring forth these beings from other dimensions. So, since the position of this northern sky clock is mostly fixed and ironically visible to most of the world, when movement does take place in these stars, with these stars, this movement signifies an opportune moment to access and activate and open this northern gateway through these sexual rites. The entire quest to travel to the backside of the tree is symbolized by the Fool card in the tarot. The Fool is literally depicted with a dog, and the Fool literally stares into what looks like the abyss. Now, Crowley changed the number of the Fool card to the number 0. And this wasn't a random act because he wanted to be weird or otherwise. The number 0 predates the number 1, and this literally signifies both the manifest and also the not manifest. So, what is not yet manifested? The Fool predates the number 1 because it signifies the birth of opportunities and things that are not yet manifested. And the Fool is also simultaneously on a journey and simultaneously not on that journey because that the journey is already completed. So this already shows us that time in this system does not follow a linear progression. Time is just simply very weird. And this is all signified by the Fool card. This makes a lot of sense because Grant literally says that in this other dimension, time moves differently. Time travels backward, it moves inward, it accelerates. So the laws that we know of in physics relating to time, they simply do not apply at all in this dimension. Now, the Fool of the Tarot is depicted with a dog. Is man to live in a dog? No, the highest of us are. As written by Crowley and mentioned again and again by Grant in Nightside of Eden and also in some of his other texts. Now, the dog here has so many correspondences. We'll need a video on that all on its own because this also corresponds to the dark star, which literally is Sirius, which literally is in the northern sky. This is just too much to be a coincidence. According to me, there's just no chance that this can be a coincidence at all. There's so much symbology in this book, guys, with dogs, with apes, mostly with dogs and apes, and then also some other creatures such as hyenas and frogs and even insects, if I remember correctly. Let me know if you want a video on the animal symbolism. I would certainly enjoy making a video on this, so I hope somebody comments, yes, please, like we want to hear more. It's also very interesting to note that God, spelled backwards, is dog. So there's an anagram here. And as many of you know, I'm sure many of you know this, anagrams are always very powerful in magical formulas. It is also very interesting to note Crowley's frequent mentions, actually, and then Grant's references to how to phrase this to make this YouTube safe, to a position that a man and a woman um, take take up during these practices to access this hidden doorway and this other place. And I cannot say this outright, unfortunately, on YouTube, but I will give you a hint here. It starts with doggy. And the reference here is that how we are positioned on Earth, especially when we are busy with a partner. It is the below aspect in Hermeticism, corresponds with, aligns with bigger cosmic processes, the as above principle. A god is not to live in a dark, but the highest of us are. The highest is the height, represented by the eighth head of the serpent that dwells in the abyss. The highest are of us. And this concludes part 3 of my Nightside series. There will be many more parts to this. We have not even touched on the tunnels of Set yet. This is just, I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest, because you cannot really describe it. I would really encourage all of you to just have a look at the actual text itself. It will help you in understanding what I'm talking about. And that way, we can actually have a very nice, thought provoking dialogue on these things. My next video will be released next week, Saturday, so within 1 week's time. And I'm choosing Saturdays specifically for the Nightside series because this corresponds to Saturn, which corresponds to the name Shani, which happens to be my name. And this happens to be the system of magic that I often use, sexual magic. So I just feel like there's a lot of personal power for myself included in choosing Saturdays for the release of this specific material. I will also be releasing material not related to the night side of Eden in between. For now, Saturdays are my fixed date for Nightside releases. You can also follow me on Patreon for more teachings, deeper dives, and my own personal experiences that I don't share here on YouTube. Please feel free to ask, quite frankly, anything in the comment section below. And if you want more of this material, comment at Nightside of Eden, Kenneth Grant, Saturday, or play around with it at Saturday, Nightside of Eden, Kenneth Grant. Thank you so much for watching. My Patreon link is linked in the description below and also in my pinned comment. See you guys next week.